Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, we'll get you up to date on the injury report with the Raiders as they prepare for their game with Seattle. We'll take you inside the Raiders locker room and give you what I'll be looking for in Sunday's game. Plus, your calls and texts will close out the show. It's all coming up on Friday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. November 25th, it's Black Friday, baby. It's the Locked On Raiders podcast.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the Locked On Raider podcast free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Appreciate everyone who subscribes, checks out YouTube when they get an opportunity. My man Ari is working very hard behind the scenes, trying to make everything go. So definitely want to shout him out at Ari Produces on Twitter. Today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast is brought to you by BetOnline.net. They got you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline.net. That is where the game starts. And first and foremost, I hope everyone had a very happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully everyone got a little bit of time to relax and chill and spend some time with the family and watch some good football or do whatever you do, however you celebrate. If you celebrate, hopefully you're able to have a really good day. There was a little bit of work that I had to do on Thursday, but, you know, it is what it is, right? I mean, I wouldn't be in the right place if I didn't have a little bit of work to do, at least on Thanksgiving. So here we are on this Black Friday. I don't know if you're getting out there in the streets and going to do a little bit of shopping. If you are, maybe I could be the soundtrack while you're doing that. Maybe you're online at the house on the computer doing what you do. Well, maybe I could be the soundtrack for that as well. Off top, when we get into today's show, I want to talk about Thanksgiving John Madden specials. That's what went on all day on Thursday. I thought that was really cool. The NFL honored the late, great Raiders head football coach and, of course, broadcaster on Thanksgiving Day. Players actually wore a helmet decal depicting the iconic image of John Madden with his fist in the air. That happened as the Raiders carried him off the field following their Super Bowl victory. I just thought that was really cool. Obviously, this is the first Thanksgiving since John Madden has passed, and I thought it was a great way to honor John Madden on Thanksgiving. Of course, everyone thinks about John Madden on Thanksgiving. If you've been watching football for any amount of time, you think about the turducken and everything that John Madden brought to the table. And it's not even necessarily as a Raiders head football coach, but as a broadcaster, just an all-around great dude. So I thought a great job by the NFL to salute him like that. Now, let's go ahead and go over the Raiders injury report from Thursday, also Seattle's, and both teams pretty clean injury report, which is nice to see when you're talking about week 12 in the NFL season. For the Raiders, Luke Masterson, the linebacker, he's actually supposed to join my radio show later on this afternoon, Raider Nation Radio 920, Unnecessary Riffness. He had a rib injury. He was limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. So we'll find out what happens on Friday. Later on today, we'll get another injury report. And then, of course, 90 minutes before kickoff, we'll get the official game status. But Luke Masterson was limited Wednesday, Thursday. Tackle Colton Miller, who missed last week's game with the shoulder and abdomen injury, limited on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Defensive tackle Kendall Vickers, dealing with a back injury, was not listed on Wednesday, did not participate on Thursday. So something to pay attention to as of that. With the Seattle Seahawks, again, very small, right? When it comes to the Raiders, that was small. 3 guys on the injury report, and that's all. That is great. For the Seahawks, there's a little bit lengthier, but not too much. They had wide receiver D. Eskridge, hand injury. Wednesday did not participate. Thursday did not participate. Defensive end L.J. Collier, illness, did not participate Wednesday, limited on Thursday. Linebacker Cody Barton, foot injury, full participant on Wednesday, full participant on Thursday. Ryan Neal, the safety, ankle injury, full on Wednesday, full on Thursday. And then Damian Lewis, the guard, ankle injury, not listed on Wednesday, limited on Thursday. And the Seahawks, they did a walkthrough. They didn't actually practice on Thursday, so it's an estimate. The estimate, the report is it's just an estimate of what they believe the players would have been. So there's that. So not a whole lot. You know, Luke Masterson, Colton Miller, and Kendall Vickers is all for the Raiders. And then D. Eskridge, L.J. Collier, Cody Barton, Ryan Neal, and Damian Lewis for the Seattle Seahawks. Not too bad when you're looking at the injury report. Now, on Thursday, the Raiders did have their locker room open. Guys I wanted to talk to, you know, Josh Jacobs, he played against the Cowboys last season. Wanted to talk to him, wanted to talk to Meek Robertson, wanted to talk to multiple guys, and they got out of there quick, fast, and in a hurry. It's funny, when we got into the locker room, Derek Carr and Devontae Adams were like, man, you guys get out of here. Get out of here, man. Go home to your families. Go eat. Do something. Get out of this locker room. Keelan Cole, same thing. But everyone got out of there quick, fast, in a hurry. Really didn't get a chance to catch up with anybody. But coming off the practice field pretty late was Denzel Perryman. And we had a couple minutes to talk with him, Vinny Bonsignore, and myself. And he had actually a pretty good testament to what Thanksgiving meant to him. And I had heard a story about, Thanksgiving was a little bit different for Denzel, but I didn't know the details behind it. And he shares it with me at the end of this little interview. So here's Denzel Perryman in the Raiders locker room following practice on Thanksgiving.
It's a weird week, because I'm sure family's in town, there's plans, and how do you kind of manage that so that you're right to go on Sunday?
Just been in the sports part of it since college. Had to adjust to it, so being away from the family, I'm kind of used to it. Probably for some of these guys, it might be something new to them, but today is just a work day, and we get to go home back to our families, which is a good thing. It's just one day, but it's a lot to be thankful about, and, Sunday is Sunday.
Are you surprised about where the Seahawks are right now? I think if you go back to the spring, they traded Russell, everyone's thinking, that's a rebuild.
No disrespect, but I'm worried about us in this locker room and what we got going on over here. The Seahawks are a good team, and, looking forward to playing them on Sunday.
What's the key to stopping the Seahawks? Obviously Geno's playing great.
Yeah.
They've got a strong running game.
Oh, yeah.
What's the key there?
You got to make it one-dimensional, man. The team that, that's running the ball and throwing the ball, man, you got to find a way to make it one-dimensional. Whether that's, shut down the run, shut down the passing game, we got to do something. So I say just making it one-dimensional, man, and, just winning our one-on-ones.
You guys won a game last week, and there's a lot of good feelings about that. Is that something that you can kind of build on, do you think?
You want to build off the momentum, but that was last week, and, the goal is to be 1-0 every week. So,
do you feel, you feel like some adjustments that were made in the second half last week kind of helped you guys come flying around in the second half?
you're going to make adjustments, first half, second half, it don't matter. But I think just, us finishing and us playing together, just doing what we need to do, just doing our jobs, that led to that win last week.
I know today's just another work day, like you mentioned, but just, it's Thanksgiving and being able to get out here, it's obviously football weather now. It's something feels different about Thanksgiving and football.
Yeah, man, I ain't gonna lie, Thanksgiving is different for me in general, man. Personally, it's different for me. But, man, like you said, man, no place you'd rather be than, in a building with a group of guys, that's all have the same goal. We all live from our families, man, and it's all welcome and arms. Like I said, we got a lot to be thankful for.
You mentioned it's different for you. Why is it different? What's it different for you?
I don't share the story a lot, but it's kind of emotional for me, man. I lost my grandfather, in high school on Thanksgiving, so, every Thanksgiving is not the same for me.
Right. You got those great memories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, man, it's a lot to be thankful for. Like I said, I'm thankful. I'm in the locker room. These great guys. Mm-hmm. Now, I had a moment earlier, but they got me out of that.
Hey, that's how it's supposed to be,
exactly.
Right? Go out there playing for them on Sunday.
That's what family about, man.
Absolutely.
So there you go right there. His grandfather passed on Thanksgiving. So obviously Thanksgiving means a little bit more to him. And I knew that there was something behind the story. I just didn't know what it was. That's why I asked. And, sometimes it's okay. He said, hey, I had a moment. My teammates came together and helped me out. That's fine. That's what they're for. Right? We all need that. We all go through trials and tribulations. And sometimes, man, it doesn't matter how tough you are. It doesn't matter how cool you are. Sometimes you just have to have that moment. And, when you're dealing with, deaths of a loved one, especially someone that's very close to you, everyone deals with it differently. So I had no fault at Denzel Perryman at all, feeling some kind of way on Thanksgiving or, just kind of getting in his feelings a little bit. That's okay. That is okay. So I thought that was some good stuff right there from Raiders linebacker Denzel Perryman. And finally, here in segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast, Bryan Edwards. Remember the former third-round pick of the Raiders who was traded to the Falcons earlier before the season got started? And a lot of people said, oh, man, why would the Raiders trade Bryan Edwards? He's up and coming. He's a really good wide receiver. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to do the other. Well, on Thanksgiving, the Falcons placed him on waivers. So he's a guy that maybe is able to be a late season addition to a team that needs wide receiver help. But Bryan Edwards obviously did not pan out in now 2 teams with the Raiders and in the ATL. So just kind of let you know when Dave Ziegler and company decided to make that move and trade Bryan Edwards because they didn't think that he was a guy that was going to fit their system and he was going to pan out. Well, obviously Atlanta didn't either. And I know Atlanta's actually overachieving right now. They're playing above what they thought they were going to do. But Bryan Edwards, who was having troubles getting on the field, now is looking for another locker room. So that's all I got for you for segment number 1 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. News and notes of the day, stuff that, kind of went over on Thanksgiving. Coming up in segment number 2, going to talk about what I'll be looking for. Normally I give keys to victory, what the Raiders have to do to get wins. And last week I said, well, what am I going to be looking for in the game? And the Raiders came away with the victory. So I'm going to go ahead and keep rolling with it as long as it's working, right? So what will I be looking for in this game on Sunday versus Seattle Seahawks as the Raiders are on the road? Well, we'll tell you about that coming up in segment number 2 after I tell you about Prize Picks. And right now you're probably thinking, well, what exactly is Prize Picks? Well, it's one, no competing against other people. It's just you versus projections available. It's really cool. And what you do is you get a couple players, 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. And there's all kinds of sports to choose from: football, college basketball, women's college basketball. They have the NHL. They have golf. They have just about anything you could imagine. NASCAR. Euro basketball, soccer, the World Cup's going on right now. So Prize Picks would be good with that as well. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals, currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Right now, all you got to do is download the Prize Pick apps or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. You deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. You deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget, enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for instant deposit match up to $100. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. What will I be looking for from the Silver and Black on Sunday? There's some things that they do really well. There's some things that they obviously have struggled with, but there's certain aspects of the game, offensively, defensively, special teams, overall, I'll be looking for from the Silver and Black. So at least I know at the very end of the day, regardless how this season shakes out, they're continuing to improve. And maybe there's certain players that continue to step up. So we'll start with the offense, what I'm looking for. First, Josh Jacobs, a guy that I was hoping to get to talk to in the locker room on Thursday. Didn't get to catch up with him. He was out of there. But I want to see Josh Jacobs continue to have his dominance on the ground. Right? He's had that dominance all season long. The last time the Seahawks took the field, they were in Germany and they took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay went for 160 plus yards. And that is very untypical of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are not a running team. So what that tells me is that Josh Jacobs has an opportunity to continue to dominate like he's doing. He's at 930 yards. I'd love to come back to the show on Monday and talk about Josh Jacobs is well over 1,000 yards and has a couple more touchdowns under the belt. I think that especially with the weather, the way it's going to be, this could be a game that shakes out really well for Josh Jacobs if he gets going early. That's the key. Get going early. And how are they going to do that? Well, they got to play clean as far as pre-snap penalties, dumb penalties. You can't be way behind the chains. You can't run Josh Jacobs if you're in 1st and 20 or 2nd and 20. You just can't do that. And you also can't run a lot of Josh Jacobs if you get down early, like 14 points. So have an emphasis on Josh Jacobs early. Play clean football. Pre-snap penalties, dumb penalties. Stop it. Cut those things out. And the crazy thing that drives me the most nuts is the fact they did that in the preseason. They were very penalty free. Get back to playing like that. That's what they need to do. Settle down, take a deep breath, and know what you're doing. Have attention to detail. Have your mind on what you're supposed to be doing instead of those mental lapses. And that's what causes all those pre-snap penalties. And then finally, when it comes to offense, with Waller and Renfro out, I want to see if the Raiders can continue to develop their offense around Davante Adams. And what I mean by that is figure out, because I think they're still working on it, figure out exactly how to use Davante Adams. Figure out exactly the chemistry between Derek Carr and Davante Adams, where it needs to go. Following the Denver game, Derek Carr said, hey, we're still working on it. It's not where it needs to be yet. We're still working on it. He said that with the sideline reporter, Christina Pink. Keep working on it. Keep working on that. And then when Waller and Renfro comes back, I'm thinking, and this is just me thinking out loud, it might be easier to integrate those guys into the offense around Adams as opposed to try to get all 3 of those guys in the mix at the same time and try to get them the right amount of balls and all that good stuff. So, all right, go heavy with Davante Adams, right? He's your number one guy, obviously. It's the Josh Jacobs and Davante Adams show. Great. So make sure that they get on the same page. They know what each other is going to do, where Derek Carr wants Davante Adams to run, where Davante Adams wants to run, how he wants to run these different routes. And then when Waller and Renfro are ready to come back, okay, now you just try to integrate those guys in there instead of trying to do all 3 at the same time. I think that might help. So that's really something I'm going to continue to pay attention to. Can Derek Carr and Davante Adams continue to grow and get on the same page? He's at 925 yards and 10 touchdowns. I'd love for him to be over 1,000 yards by Monday as well, and maybe 12 touchdowns, right? Both guys, Jacobs and Adams, be over 1,000 yards by Monday, and both have a couple more touchdowns under the belt. Defensively, different subject. Can the Raiders slow down the big playability of the Seahawks? And what I mean by that, can Sam Webb rebound? He had a rough game on Sunday against the Broncos. They picked on him early. They picked on him often. The one thing about it is he didn't get discouraged. He didn't get, upset at himself. He just kept out there, kept trying and kept working. And at some point the Raiders pulled him out, but at the same time, it wasn't, it didn't look like he was totally upset. So I just want to see, can he rebound from that rough game he had against Denver? Because this is going to be a tough one. I mean, look, Tyler Lockett is a dog. DK Metcalf is a dog. So the Raiders are going to have to be real strong in the secondary. That's the corners and the safeties. So can Sam Webb rebound? Nate Hobbs, does he return? I think that there's a good chance he does return. If he does, what kind of impact can he make? Can Amik Robertson make a play? Right? I'm looking at the secondary because, look, the Seahawks, they have that big playability. They absolutely do. Also, Kenneth Walker III, he's a problem out of Michigan State. Bright young rookie. He's got over 500-something yards, and he didn't even start the season as a starter, but he can go. And the thing about him, in college, he was used to getting the home runs. Now he's learning how to take 3 or 4 yards and fall forward, similar to what Josh Jacobs does. Jacobs is very patient, and he falls forward. That's what Kenneth Walker is learning how to do. Fall forward, pick up positive yards, 4 or 5 yards. And that's what they're going to want to do. That's an old Pete Carroll special. He wants to run the rock. He wants to run the rock. He wants to run the rock and play strong defense. And then can the Raiders create a turnover or two? If they can, as I told Corbin Smith when we did the crossover on Thursday, I think that the Raiders could win the game, but I feel like they have to have a turnover or two. And I know they don't create a bunch of turnovers, but I feel like they're going to need 1 or 2, especially on the road in Seattle. Weird, crazy weather that they're probably going to have, and a tough crowd to play against. So that's going to help take the crowd out of the game. Special teams wise, this is actually pretty fun to talk about the special teams now. Amir Abdullah, he's looked a lot better in the return game, and I haven't really mentioned anything as of late when it comes to Amir Abdullah in the return game, but man, he's looked pretty good. Like, he's ready to break one. He looks like any second now, and I almost asked Josh McDaniels about that on either Monday or Wednesday. I can't remember what day it was at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center, but I was like, no, I don't want to jinx him. But I'm telling you, Amir Abdullah looks like he's about that far away, and if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm just doing this little thing with my fingers. He looks like he's really close to breaking one, and the Raiders haven't had someone return a kick in a very long time for a touchdown, but Amir Abdullah looks like he's that guy. Now, Keelan Cole, when he's returning punts, he makes me nervous. All I want him to do is catch the ball. He don't need to run, just fair catch it. I am very nervous when Keelan Cole is back there returning punts. But Amir Abdullah, he looks good in the return game. Coverage. Normally I say kick the ball in the end zone. They've been looking a lot better. When Carlson kicks it short, they've been covering a lot better. I don't want to not give them credit. They've been covering up the kickoff a lot better. They've been pinning teams deep. So if they're feeling comfortable now, if they're in that area and they're in that zone where, okay, we can do this, we're figuring out, so be it. Do it. I'm okay with that. As long as the coverage is there, make it happen. And A.J. Cole, just keep flipping the field. He's been doing a good job flipping the field, something Josh McDaniels has given him a lot of credit for. He's been able to pin teams deep, pin Seattle deep, make Geno Smith and company go the length of the field. Overall, it's real simple. Cut the penalties in half. They had almost 100 yards of penalties last week against the Broncos. You got to cut it down to at least 50. Play clean ball, no turnovers. Those guys, defensively for Seattle, opportunistic guys. I'm talking about Tariq Woolen, guy that I wanted the Raiders to draft. Kobe Bryant, another guy that I wanted the Raiders to draft. Michael Jackson on the back end. They got some great names, but they also have some really good players. They are opportunistic. They're going to go make plays at the ball. The Raiders cannot turn the ball over. They got to protect the quarterback. That all goes into playing clean ball. And can the Raiders take the 12s out of it? Just a little bit. You're not going to take the 12s out of it completely, right? But that's a loud place to play. I asked Josh McDaniels, like, what makes that place so loud, so difficult besides the fact that it's loud in the weather? And he said, well, it's loud in the weather. And oh, by the way, the team is good too, right? So, I mean, it's just that. It's loud and the weather is going to be not so ideal. So, got to be able to take the 12s out of it at least just a little bit and start to put a streak together. If you win 2 games, that's a streak. Be the first one you had all season long. So that's what I got for you. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast on this Friday. Keys to the game, what I'll be looking for, and really in particular in this game against Seattle come Sunday. Coming up in segment number 3, going to give you the calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about our good friends at Simply Safe. And if you thought about securing your home with home security, but you've been putting it off, you're going to want to listen up. Right now, all Locked On Raider podcast listeners can order the number 1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Over the holidays, property crimes like burglaries and package thefts spike, right? That's why all our friends at Simply Safe Home Security are offering 50% off their award-winning security system so more families can feel safe and secure this holiday season. Order your Simply Safe system for half off today and enjoy advanced security and greater peace of mind this holiday season. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify that the threat is real so you can get priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Here we go, Raider Nation, segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Final segment of the day, final segment of the show, final segment of the week. Calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with Jordan in Oregon. He's calling to respond to Raider Jim in the Pacific Northwest, where he was talking about Derek Carr and also talking about Davante Adams. Here he is, Jordan in Oregon.
Hey, what's going on, Q? Jordan in Oregon. Wanted to call in. Loving the podcast this week. Great win for the Raiders against the Broncos there. And, you know, what really wanted to call in really and kind of piggyback on Raider Jim, Pacific Northwest. Hey, man, I hear you. I just wanted to kind of reply back to some of what he was talking about with the Derek Carr contract talks and, you know, just how it can go a lot of different directions. But one thing I want to just point out, and Q, you've already elaborated on it a lot, is with Adams breaking records right now, literally Raider records and, you know, potentially stacking some NFL records depending on how everything shakes out. I think that Carr to Adams combo is just something they're not going to break up. And, you know, it really got me thinking about, like, how the Raiders acquired Davante. And, like, in the past, it's been really tough for this team to go acquire, you know, high-end, elite talent in their prime. You know, it's one thing to get a guy on the back end of his career. You know, we've had plenty of those. But to get in the you know, arguably the best at his position in his prime, and think about how we acquired him, and it really got me thinking, I don't think Davante would have came to Las Vegas if it wasn't for Carr. And that's a really obvious statement. Just the trust he had, you know, obviously from their history, he knew that he was getting himself in a situation where he felt confident and trust Carr that they were going to have some success together. And with that being said, you do have to value that move in respect to Derek Carr, because the character of Derek Carr, and I'm going to say this now, is Davante played with one of the all-time greats, but the character of Derek Carr and the genuine guy he is what really lured Davante, and that's just a personal opinion, to the Raiders, and that he could trust him. And so with that being said, man, that's like a 1-2 combo that you almost have to look at the both of them, put their grades together and come up with one grade, because they're just a 1-2 punch now. And with all this going on, I don't see Carr going anywhere. And then also I wanted to just elaborate on another sign that I think DC is safe is that locker room celebration afterwards. And I know it sounds kind of corny or whatever, but that looked to me between coach and quarterback as a celebration that was really genuine. And that just, you know, there's a lot behind trying to get this thing to take off. I know they're only, you know, 10 games in or whatever right now. But I still think that you could just see that genuine excitement with each other, that they're not going to break this up. And this is coming from a guy who's been looking at rookie quarterbacks in the draft. So I hear you, man, but that's all I got. Peace out to you.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I agree, and I don't think Carr's going anywhere. You know, for all those that think he's going somewhere, and I could be wrong, I've been wrong many times before, I don't see him going anywhere. Davante Adams is with the Raiders. A lot of that has to do with Derek Carr and being on the West Coast and playing with his childhood team growing up. But he wants to play with Derek Carr. He didn't want to play with the rookie quarterback in Green Bay. He sure as hell is not going to want to play with the rookie quarterback in Las Vegas. He wants a guy he knows and a guy he's comfortable with. And you know who that is? Derek Carr. Does that stop them from drafting a guy? No. Just that stops them from playing a guy and moving on from Derek Carr. I don't see them moving on with Derek Carr. I believe they believe that they can win with DC, and I think that they can win with DC. Thank you for that call, Jordan. I do appreciate you. Hopefully you had a happy Thanksgiving, my man. Next up, I got a text from Raider fan in Vancouver, Canada. It's a pretty lengthy text. He says, "Hey, Q, Raider fan from Vancouver, Canada here. Pump that for the first time since 2014. Pump that for the first time since 2014. The Raiders are back to the Pacific Northwest, 3 hours away from Vancouver. This is going to be a tough game for the Raiders, considering the Seahawks are much, much better than anyone expected them to be. Derek Carr disrespect online has been frustrating. This dude loves the Raiders, has been playing great the last few games, but tough luck sometimes. He's a great quarterback who literally bleeds silver and black. I'd rather have a quarterback that takes pride in being a Raider than just a quarterback looking for a fat contract without any love for the history of the franchise. I'd rather have Derek Carr lead the offense, management fix up the defense, and run it back next season because this team is too talented to have the record they have right now. And a rookie quarterback isn't going to make anything better. But I agree with what you said the other day, Q. Draft a quarterback and let Carr be a mentor to him and show him the rope. Still, lots of football left this season. Fingers crossed they can go on a run. Also, going to be standing in the rain in Seattle Sunday wearing my Howie Long jersey, repping my team as they come to my side of the continent. Hopefully one day the Seahawks are back in the AFC West so the Raiders can come to the Pacific Northwest more often. Lots of Raider Nation in Vancouver, Canada. Love the podcast. My first listen every day. Great work, Q. Always refreshing listening to your positive energy, even when things aren't going right with the Raiders. Just win, baby. That is a Raider fan from Vancouver, Canada. And that's a lot right there to unpack. But as far as Derek Carr, I kind of already talked about that, and I agree with you 100%. DC, I think, will be the quarterback with a young dude sitting behind him. As far as the game, it's going to be a very tough game. Seattle's playing a lot better than anyone expected them to play. It's not a game that the Raiders can't win. It's a game that they have to make sure they go and win, though. Seattle is very well coached. Pete Carroll's a hell of a coach. He's not going to allow that team to beat themselves. Geno Smith is playing a hell of a game, a hell of a season, right? He's putting together a nice little, resume builder so he can get a fat contract, whether it's in Seattle or somewhere else. But thank you so much for that text, my man. Enjoy the game on Sunday. Please enjoy the game as much as possible. Instead, try to stay dry if you can, but I know it's going to be rainy there in Seattle. Thank you so much for that text. Next up, I got a call from Nate in the 626. He's calling to talk about what all Raider fans should do. Here he is, Nate in the 626.
Thank you, Nate from the 626. Just wanted to say, I think it should be mandatory for all Raiders to watch the history of the Oakland Raiders. Man, I remember watching that thing as a kid, and it used to get me pumped up, especially when I used to play Pop Warner football. Always watching that thing get you pumped up. You know, something about watching those greats just kind of gives you like a sense of pride. You know, I know we've been the bad news bears for the last 22 years, but still, man, I still have that fire when it comes to the Raiders. You know, I got it tattooed on my body. It's forever. You know, Raiders forever, Raiders for life, Raider Nation for life. But I think these new players, they need to get that sense of, you know, that continuity that the old school Raiders had. I know, like they say, you can't live in the past, but, you know, sometimes you got to look back in the past and know where you're going in the future. I feel everybody, you know, when you're feeling down, just watch the greatness that, you know, that they achieved, the accomplishments, everything. Yeah, that's my 2 cents. Right here, about to watch these Thanksgiving games. I hope all you guys have a good Thanksgiving, drive safe, and get this W on Sunday against Seattle. Much love.
Nate, thanks so much for the call. And yeah, man, to see the history of the Raiders, that'd be good for Raider Nation, right? Especially the younger cats. Even guys my age, as a matter of fact. It would be great to just go back and watch and appreciate the dominance and how great those Raiders teams were because, man, they were great. They were dominant. They were nasty. There's a reason why our families all love the silver and black because that's just who they were. They were that team, right? Sense of pride. I get it. And I'll tell you this, a little funny side story. When I was younger, man, and I was playing basketball all the time, I would always watch Michael Jordan come fly with me before every basketball game. I had that thing on VHS, and I swear I wore that thing out. But, man, when I got my hands, and I don't know who gave that to me as a gift, but someone gave that to me as a gift. Michael Jordan, come fly with me. And, man, I used to watch it before every single game. And, I mean, look, I knew I was not Michael Jordan. I knew I was nowhere close to him. But, man, you want to talk about getting you fired up, getting a young kid fired up? That did it for me every single time. So thank you so much for that call, my man. I do appreciate you. Just got a couple more, and then we'll close out the show for the week. A text from Scott in Wine Country. He says, what's good, Q? This is Scott from Wine Country. Regarding Josh Jacobs, I would love to pay the man. He has proven himself to this new coaching staff. He's been our workhorse. He deserves to get paid, and we need to retain him. He's someone who puts his heart into it, and he's someone who you'd want to build your team around. He's worth every penny. Pay him. That's from Scott in Wine Country, and I don't really even have to say anything. You already know you got my cosign. Where do I got to sign? What line do I have to sign on? Done. I don't even have to read the small print because, yeah, I'm with you 100%. Let's close things out with Raider X. He's calling to talk about the game on Sunday and what he'll be looking for, and more importantly, what concerns him the most. Here he is, Raider X, to close us out.
Happy Thanksgiving, Q and Raider Nation. This is Raider X. Giving you my thoughts for Sunday's game against the Hawks. I'm a little concerned. I'm not too concerned about the overall matchups with our Raiders wide receivers. against Seattle. I'm more concerned about the pressure of the defensive line against the middle of the Raiders. And why I say that is I anticipate them creating a little pressure down the middle later in the game. I think eventually the whole issue for the Raiders is going to be the middle of the defense again. And I think that Seattle's going to peck, and exploit the Raiders' middle. And then we're going to slow down, and we're not going to be able to score much. And at the end, we're going to have to push. And as we start pushing and trying to score, start getting, pass heavy, I think what's going to happen is that Seattle's going to start caving in the middle of that offensive line and start putting pressure on our pocket quarterback. And they're going to start actually having trouble getting that ball out and exploiting and using the talents of Devontae Adams. So they're not going to have much time, and everybody else is not going to be able to really provide much on our offense. And that's what I worry about. Raiders getting behind early due to Seattle exploiting the middle and having to pass. Because I think that they have the ability to run, utilize inside, outside, and then mix it up with some passes. I think the Raiders will be okay. So it's all going to be told after at the first half. If the Raiders can be very, very close or even ending the first half, we got it, man. We got it. We're going to have a Raiders win. If they fall behind, I think that we're going to have some issues. And I just hope that the Raiders have found their mix and they somehow can mix it up to take advantage and somehow slow down the middle. That's going to be our Achilles heel. There we go. Raider X out. I think it's a one-score game, 17-23. Raider X out. Happy Thanksgiving, all.
Thank you so much for the call, my man. I appreciate you. The middle of the field, that's always going to be an issue. Whenever I do the Raider Roundtable show with JT and Lincoln Kennedy, and this last week it was Jason Horowitz, we always end up talking about the middle of the field because it's always wide open, like some old school TV antennas, man. It's always the softest area of the Raiders defense. They've got to find a way to clean that up. And right, I've been talking about the defense a lot, and it's so funny, man. Folks get mad at me when I talk about the defense on the radio show. People have been hammering me for talking about the defense, but I'll tell you, man, they've got to be complimentary. They've got to do their end of the bargain and at least give the Raiders opportunities to win the game like they did on Sunday. They kept them in the game to the point where Derek Carr had a chance to win it at the end. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for the Doomsday's defense, not asking for the 85 Bears, the Baltimore Ravens. I'm not asking for any of those squads. Just keep the team close. Give them a fighting chance. Get off the field and give the offense a chance. And if you do that, the Raiders are going to find ways to win games. They started it, hopefully, on Sunday with that one-score win over Denver. Hopefully they can continue to build off that moving forward. But thank you so much for that call, my man. I do appreciate you, and that's going to do it for today's show. That's going to do it for this week of shows. Hopefully everyone enjoyed themselves not only on Thanksgiving but all week long. Hopefully you're very safe out there if you're riding around with the Black Friday stuff going on. I know it gets a little crazy out there in the streets, so definitely take care of yourself. Be safe. Take care of your family. So again, thanks so much for making the Locked On Raider podcast your first listen each and every day. Remember, you can find the show free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Shout out to my man Ari. Hopefully he had a happy Thanksgiving as well. Did a lot of work behind the scenes, even though it was Thanksgiving. And Ari, keep up the good work, man. I do appreciate you. So till Monday, Raider Nation, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game. Hopefully the Raiders come away with another dub and we can talk about another victory and hand out some more game balls come Monday. Until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself. Take care of your family. Love on your family. Enjoy your weekend and just win, baby.